In a faraway galaxy, there existed a planet called Zorgan, home to the most terrifying predators in the universe, the Zorgs. These creatures were known for their ferocity, razor-sharp claws, and insatiable hunger for flesh. No one dared to venture near their planet, fearing for their lives. Enter Zack, a brave human explorer who had set out on a mission to chart the unknown regions of the galaxy. His spaceship, the Intrepid, was equipped with state-of-the-art technology and a fearless crew. Little did Zack know that his journey would lead him to the planet of the Zorgs. As the Intrepid approached Zorgan, the crew was awestruck by the planet's eerie beauty. The surface was covered in dense, dark forests and jagged mountain ranges. The sky was a deep shade of crimson, with 3 moons orbiting the planet. However, the tranquility was short-lived as their sensors detected movement on the ground. Zack decided to land the ship in a clearing near the forest's edge. He assembled a small team to explore the area and gather samples for research. As they stepped out of the ship, an uneasy silence enveloped them. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the only sound was the distant rustling of leaves. Suddenly, a blood-curdling roar echoed through the forest, freezing the team in their tracks. Zack signaled everyone to retreat to the ship, but it was too late. A massive creature burst through the trees, its eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. It was a Zorg, and it had caught their scent. The team scrambled to safety, but one of the crew members was not fast enough. The Zorg pounced on him, sinking its claws into his flesh. Zack watched in horror as his friend was dragged away into the darkness. The rest of the team managed to make it back to the ship, their hearts pounding in their chests. Zack knew they had to leave immediately, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to learn more about these creatures. He had a gut feeling that there was more to the Zorgs than met the eye. Against his crew's advice, Zack decided to stay on Zorgan and study the predators. Over the next few days, Zack observed the Zorgs from a safe distance using drones and hidden cameras. He discovered that they had a complex social structure and communicated with each other through a series of grunts and growls. He also noticed that they only hunted when necessary and seemed to have a deep connection to their environment. As Zack continued his research, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration for the Zorgs. Despite their fearsome reputation, they were remarkable creatures that had adapted perfectly to their harsh world. He knew that he needed to find a way to communicate with them, to understand them better. One day, while exploring a cave system near the Zorg's hunting grounds, Zack stumbled upon a young Zorg that had been injured. Its leg was caught in a crevice, and it was clearly in pain. Without hesitation, Zack approached the creature and carefully freed its leg. The Zorg stared at him with a mix of confusion and curiosity, but it did not attack. From that moment on, Zack knew that he had a chance to establish a connection with the Zorgs. He spent the next few weeks trying to gain their trust, offering them food and tending to their wounds. Slowly but surely, the Zorgs began to accept his presence, and Zack felt a sense of kinship with these misunderstood creatures. Little did Zack know that his actions would soon send shockwaves throughout the galaxy. As word spread of a human befriending the deadly predators of Zorgan, many were left in disbelief. Some even feared that Zack had gone mad. But for Zack, this was just the beginning of an incredible journey that would change the course of galactic history forever. And so begins the story of an unlikely friendship that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about the Zorgs and the power of understanding and compassion in the face of fear and prejudice. Zack knew that his first encounter with the Zorgs had been a close call. He realized that if he wanted to learn more about these creatures, he would have to be cautious and patient. He decided to set up a base camp at a safe distance from the Zorgs' hunting grounds and began to study them from afar. Days turned into weeks as Zack observed the Zorgs, taking detailed notes on their behavior and habits. He noticed that they had a strict hierarchy within their packs, with the strongest and most cunning individuals leading the others. He also discovered that they had a complex system of communication, using a combination of growls, roars, and body language to convey messages to each other. Despite the danger, Zack found himself drawn to these fascinating creatures. He admired their strength, their loyalty to one another, and their incredible adaptability to their harsh environment. He knew that if he could find a way to communicate with them, he might be able to unlock the secrets of their world. One day, while out on a scouting mission, Zack stumbled upon an injured Zorg lying in a ravine. The creature had a deep gash on its leg and was clearly in pain. Without hesitation, Zack approached the Zorg, speaking softly and holding out his hand in a gesture of peace. To his surprise, the Zorg did not attack. Instead, it watched him warily, its eyes filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. Slowly, Zack inched closer, reaching out to examine the creature's wound. The Zorg flinched but did not pull away, allowing Zack to clean and dress the injury with supplies from his med kit. From that moment on, something changed between Zack and the Zorgs. Word spread quickly among the packs about the strange human who had shown kindness to one of their own. Some were suspicious, but others were intrigued. Slowly but surely, they began to approach Zack's camp, watching him from a distance, and occasionally leaving small offerings of food or trinkets. Zack was thrilled by this development, but he knew that he had to be careful. He didn't want to disrupt the delicate balance of the Zorg society or put them in danger by drawing too much attention to himself. He continued to observe and study them, but now he did so with a newfound respect and understanding. As the weeks passed, Zack began to notice changes in the Zorg's behavior. They seemed more relaxed around him, and some even allowed him to approach them without fear. He started to learn their language, picking up on the subtle nuances of their growls and roars. He even gave some of them names based on their unique markings or personalities. But Zack knew that his time on Zorgan was limited. He had a mission to complete, and he couldn't stay forever. He started to worry about what would happen to the Zorgs after he left. Would they revert back to their old ways, or would they remember the lessons he had taught them about trust and cooperation? As he prepared to leave, Zack made a decision. He would not abandon the Zorgs. He would find a way to stay in touch with them, to continue learning from them and sharing his knowledge with the galaxy. He knew that it would be a difficult task, but he was determined to see it through. And so, with a heavy heart, Zack bid farewell to his Zorg friends and set off back into space. He knew that his journey was far from over and that he had a long road ahead of him. But he also knew that he had made a difference on Zorgan, and that the Zorgs would never be the same again. As he looked out at the stars, Zack couldn't help but smile. He had set out to explore the unknown, but he had found something far more valuable. A connection with a species that had once been feared and misunderstood. And he knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would never forget the lessons he had learned on Zorgan. As Zack continued his research on the Zorgs, he realized that there was still so much to learn about these fascinating creatures. He had already discovered that they had a complex social structure and a unique way of communicating, but he knew that he had only scratched the surface. Determined to uncover more, Zack set up a series of cameras and sensors around the Zorgs' hunting grounds. He wanted to observe them in their natural habitat, without interfering or disturbing their way of life. He spent hours poring over the footage, analyzing their movements and interactions. What he discovered was nothing short of incredible. The Zorgs, it turned out, were not just mindless predators. They had a sophisticated system of social hierarchy, with each member of the pack playing a specific role. The strongest and most experienced Zorgs led the hunts, while the younger ones stayed back to protect the den and care for the offspring. Zack also noticed that the Zorgs had a deep connection to their environment. They seemed to have an innate understanding of the delicate balance of the ecosystem, and they played a crucial role in maintaining it. They hunted only what they needed to survive, never taking more than necessary. As he delved deeper into his research, Zack began to realize that the Zorgs were not so different from other intelligent species in the galaxy. They had their own culture, their own way of life, and their own unique perspective on the world around them. Excited by his findings, Zack decided to share his research with the scientific community back on Earth. He knew that his discoveries could change the way people thought about the Zorgs and other alien species. He hoped that by sharing his knowledge, he could help to bridge the gap between humans and the rest of the galaxy. But as he prepared to leave Zorgan, Zack couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving something important behind. He had formed a deep bond with the Zorgs, and he knew that he would miss them deeply. He wondered if he would ever have the chance to see them again. Just as he was about to board his ship, Zack heard a familiar sound behind him. He turned to see a group of Zorgs emerging from the forest, led by the one he had rescued all those weeks ago. The creature approached him cautiously, its eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and trust. Zack knew that he couldn't leave without saying goodbye. He knelt down and held out his hand, just as he had done when he first met the injured Zorg. The creature sniffed his hand tentatively, then pressed its snout against his palm in a gesture of affection. Zack felt a lump form in his throat as he realized the significance of the moment. He had come to Zorgan as an outsider, a stranger in a strange land. But now he was leaving as a friend, a member of the Zorg pack. With a heavy heart, Zack boarded his ship and prepared to leave Zorgan behind. As he looked out the window at the receding planet, he knew that he would never forget the time he had spent there. He had learned so much, not just about the Zorgs, but about himself and his place in the universe. And as he set course for Earth, Zack knew that his journey was far from over. He had a mission now, a purpose that went beyond just exploring the stars. He wanted to share his knowledge with the galaxy, to help others understand the incredible diversity and beauty of the universe. He knew that it would be a long and difficult road, but he was ready for the challenge. With the memories of his time on Zorgan to guide him, Zack knew that he could face anything that the galaxy threw his way. And who knows, maybe one day he would return to Zorgan and see his old friends once again. As Zack's ship soared through the vast expanse of space, he couldn't stop thinking about his time on Zorgan and the incredible bond he had formed with the Zorgs. He knew that his experience had changed him in ways he never could have imagined, and he was determined to share his newfound knowledge with the rest of the galaxy. But as he approached his next destination, a remote outpost on the edge of the galaxy, Zack received an urgent message from his superiors back on Earth. They had heard about his research on the Zorgs and were eager to learn more. They wanted him to return to Zorgan immediately and establish a permanent research station there. Zack was torn. On one hand, he was thrilled at the opportunity to continue his work with the Zorgs and learn even more about their fascinating culture. But on the other hand, he knew that a permanent human presence on Zorgan could disrupt the delicate balance of their ecosystem and way of life. After much deliberation, Zack decided to return to Zorgan, but with a different approach. Instead of establishing a permanent research station, he would visit the planet periodically, spending short periods of time there to gather data and observe the Zorgs in their natural habitat. When he arrived back on Zorgan, Zack was greeted by a familiar sight. The Zorgs were waiting for him at the edge of the forest, their eyes gleaming with recognition and excitement. They had missed him, and they were eager to see what new discoveries he would make. Over the next few months, Zack spent countless hours observing the Zorgs and learning more about their complex social structure and behavior. He discovered that they had a sophisticated system of communication, using a combination of vocalizations, body language, and even scent marking to convey messages and establish dominance. He also learned that the Zorgs had a deep spiritual connection to their environment, and that they believed in a powerful force that flowed through all living things. They called this force the Great Hunt, and they saw themselves as part of a larger cosmic cycle of life and death. As Zack delved deeper into Zorg culture, he began to realize that they were not just mindless predators, but intelligent, sentient beings with their own unique perspective on the universe. He felt a deep sense of respect and admiration for them, and he knew that he had to find a way to protect them from the encroaching influence of the galaxy. But as he prepared to leave Zorgan once again, Zack received another message from Earth. This time, it was a warning. A group of wealthy investors had heard about the Zorgs and were planning to establish a tourist resort on the planet, complete with luxury accommodations and guided Zorg safaris. Zack was horrified. He knew that such a development would be disastrous for the Zorgs, disrupting their way of life and exposing them to untold dangers. He had to find a way to stop it, but he knew that he couldn't do it alone. Desperate for help, Zach reached out to his contacts in the scientific community, hoping to find allies who shared his passion for protecting the Zorgs. To his surprise, he found a groundswell of support, with researchers and conservationists from across the galaxy pledging to join his cause. Together, they launched a campaign to raise awareness about the plight of the Zorgs and the importance of preserving their unique culture and habitat. They lobbied government officials, staged protests, and even filed legal challenges to stop the tourist resort from being built. In the end, their efforts paid off. The investors backed down, and the Zorgs were granted protected status as a sentient species with the right to self-determination. Zach felt a sense of relief wash over him, knowing that he had played a small but important role in safeguarding their future. As he looked out over the lush forests of Zorgan one last time, Zach knew that his journey was far from over. He had found his calling, and he would spend the rest of his life fighting to protect the incredible diversity and beauty of the universe, one species at a time. News of Zach's unique friendship with the Zorgs spread like wildfire across the galaxy. People were shocked and amazed that a human had managed to form a bond with such a fearsome and misunderstood species. Some even hailed Zach as a hero, a shining example of what could be achieved through compassion and understanding. But not everyone was thrilled about Zach's newfound fame. Some saw his relationship with the Zorgs as a threat, a challenge to the established order of things. They feared that if word got out that humans could befriend such dangerous creatures, it would upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. One of the most vocal opponents of Zach's work was a powerful politician named Senator Zorn. Zorn was a staunch believer in the superiority of his own species, and he saw the Zorgs as nothing more than mindless beasts to be hunted and conquered. He was determined to put an end to Zach's research and discredit him in the eyes of the galaxy. Zorn launched a smear campaign against Zach, accusing him of everything from treason to insanity. He even went so far as to suggest that Zach had been brainwashed by the Zorgs and was now working as their spy. Zach was stunned by the accusations, but he refused to back down. He knew that he had to fight for what he believed in, no matter the cost. As the controversy grew, Zach found himself at the center of a media firestorm. Reporters from across the galaxy descended on Zorgan, eager to get a glimpse of the human who had befriended the deadly predators. Zach did his best to avoid the cameras and focus on his work, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain his privacy. Despite the mounting pressure, Zach refused to abandon his Zorg friends. He continued to visit them regularly, spending long hours observing their behavior and learning more about their culture. He even started to teach them basic concepts like tool use and fire making, hoping to help them adapt to the changing world around them. But as Zach's bond with the Zorgs deepened, so too did the danger he faced. Senator Zorn's campaign against him was gaining traction, and there were rumors of a secret government project to capture and study the Zorgs for military purposes. Zach knew that he had to act fast if he wanted to protect his friends. In a desperate bid to save the Zorgs, Zach made a bold decision. He would take his case directly to the Galactic Council, the governing body of the galaxy. He would argue for the Zorgs' right to self-determination and demand that they be granted protected status as a sentient species. It was a risky move, but Zach knew that he had no choice. He gathered all the evidence he had collected over the years, including video footage of his interactions with the Zorgs and detailed scientific reports on their behavior and culture. He even managed to convince a few of his Zorg friends to accompany him to the council chambers, hoping that their presence would help sway the vote in his favor. As Zach stood before the council, his heart racing with nerves and excitement, he knew that he was about to make history. He took a deep breath and began to speak, pouring all his passion and conviction into his words. He told the story of his journey to Zorgan, of the incredible bond he had formed with the Zorgs, and of the urgent need to protect them from exploitation and destruction. To his amazement, the council listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder and curiosity. Some even seemed moved by his words, nodding in agreement as he spoke. When he finished, there was a moment of stunned silence, followed by a thunderous applause. In the end, the council voted overwhelmingly in favor of granting the Zorgs protected status. Zack felt a surge of relief and joy wash over him, knowing that he had helped to secure a brighter future for his Zorg friends. As he looked out over the council chambers, he knew that he had achieved something truly remarkable. He had changed the course of galactic history, one friendship at a time. Despite the Galactic Council's decision to grant the Zorgs protected status, Zack knew that his work was far from over. Senator Zorn and his allies were still determined to undermine Zack's efforts and exploit the Zorgs for their own gain. They had even managed to secretly establish a research facility on Zorgon, where they were conducting cruel experiments on captured Zorgs. Zack was horrified when he discovered what was happening. He knew that he had to act fast to save his Zorg friends and put an end to Zorn's evil plans. He gathered a team of trusted allies, including a few brave Zorgs who had learned to trust him, and set out to infiltrate the research facility and shut it down. As they approached the facility, Zack and his team were met with fierce resistance from Zorn's security forces. Laser blasts filled the air as they fought their way through the compound, dodging and weaving to avoid being hit. Zack's heart raced with adrenaline and fear, but he refused to back down. He had to save the Zorgs, no matter the cost. Finally, they had reached the main laboratory, where they found dozens of Zorgs being held in cramped, filthy cages. Many of them were injured or sick, their once powerful bodies reduced to mere shells of their former selves. Zack felt a surge of anger and disgust as he saw the suffering that Zorn had inflicted on these innocent creatures. With the help of his team, Zack managed to free the captured Zorgs and destroy the research equipment. But just as they were about to make their escape, they were confronted by Senator Zorn himself, who had arrived with a fleet of heavily armed ships. Zorn demanded that Zack surrender and hand over the Zorgs, claiming that they were too dangerous to be allowed to roam free. Zack refused, standing firm in his belief that the Zorgs deserved to live in peace and freedom. He tried to reason with Zorn, to make him see the error of his ways, but the senator was too blinded by his own hatred and fear to listen. In the end, it was the Zorgs themselves who saved the day. Inspired by Zack's bravery and compassion, they rose up against Zorn and his forces, using their incredible strength and agility to overwhelm the enemy. Zack and his team fought alongside them, their bond of friendship giving them the courage and determination to keep going. After a long and brutal battle, Zorn was finally defeated. His ships lay in ruins, and his once powerful empire had crumbled to dust. The Zorgs emerged victorious, their freedom and dignity restored at last. As Zack looked out over the battlefield, he felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over him. He had faced impossible odds and emerged triumphant, all thanks to the power of friendship and understanding. He knew that he could never have done it alone, and he was grateful for the unwavering support of his Zorg friends. In the days that followed, Zack worked tirelessly to help the Zorgs rebuild their lives and reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. He used his newfound influence to advocate for their rights and protect them from further exploitation. He even helped to establish a new galactic council, one that was dedicated to promoting peace and understanding between all species. As he stood before the new council, Zack couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. He had started out as just another human explorer, driven by a thirst for adventure and discovery. But through his friendship with the Zorgs, he had become something more, a champion of justice and equality, a beacon of hope for all those who had been oppressed and marginalized. And as he looked out over the sea of faces before him, Zack knew that his work was just beginning. There were still so many challenges to be faced, so many wrongs to be righted. But with the Zorgs by his side, he knew that anything was possible. Together, they would build a better future for all the beings of the galaxy, one friendship at a time. With Senator Zorn defeated and the Zorgs granted protected status, Zack knew that it was time to take the next step in his mission to promote peace and understanding between species. He realized that the only way to truly achieve this goal was to bring the Zorgs and humans together, to show them that they had more in common than they realized. And so, with the help of his Zorg friends and a team of human diplomats, Zack set out to establish the first ever human-Zorg alliance. It was a daunting task, fraught with challenges and obstacles at every turn. Many humans were still wary of the Zorgs, seeing them as dangerous and unpredictable. And some Zorgs were hesitant to trust humans, remembering the cruelty and exploitation they had suffered at the hands of Senator Zorn and his ilk. But Zack refused to give up. He worked tirelessly to build bridges between the two species, organizing joint missions and cultural exchanges that brought them closer together. He even managed to convince some of the most influential leaders in the galaxy to support his cause, using his newfound fame and influence to sway public opinion in his favor. Slowly but surely, the barriers between humans and Zorgs began to break down. Humans started to see the Zorgs as intelligent, compassionate beings with a rich culture and history, and Zorgs began to see humans as potential allies and friends, rather than just another threat to be feared and avoided. As the alliance grew stronger, Zack and his team began to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing the galaxy. They worked to combat poverty and inequality, to protect endangered species and habitats, and to promote education and scientific discovery. They even managed to broker peace treaties between warring factions, using their unique understanding of different cultures and perspectives to find common ground. Through it all, Zack never lost sight of his ultimate goal: to create a galaxy where all beings could live together in harmony and mutual respect. He knew that it wouldn't be easy, that there would always be those who sought to divide and conquer. But he also knew that he had the power to make a difference, to inspire others to follow in his footsteps and work towards a better future for all. And so, as the years passed, Zack continued to lead the Human-Zorg Alliance, guiding it through countless challenges and triumphs. He watched as new generations of humans and Zorgs grew up together, learning from each other and forming unbreakable bonds of friendship and trust. He saw the galaxy transform before his eyes, becoming a place of wonder and possibility, where anything was possible if you had the courage and the vision to make it happen. Looking back on his journey, Zack couldn't help but marvel at how far he had come. He had started out as just another human, lost and alone in a vast and dangerous universe. But through his friendship with the Zorgs, he had found a new purpose, a new way of seeing the world and his place in it. And now, as he stood before the Galactic Council once again, this time as the leader of the Human-Zorg Alliance, Zack knew that he had achieved something truly remarkable. He had shown that even the most unlikely of friendships could change the course of history, that even the most intractable of conflicts could be resolved through understanding and compassion. As he looked out over the sea of faces before him, human and Zorg alike, Zack felt a sense of pride and gratitude wash over him. He knew that he could never have done it alone, that he owed everything to the incredible beings who had stood by his side and believed in his vision. And so, with a smile on his face and hope in his heart, Zack stepped forward to address the council, ready to lead the galaxy into a new era of peace and prosperity. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be many more challenges to come. But he also knew that together, they could overcome anything as long as they held fast to the power of friendship and the unshakable belief in a better tomorrow. Years turned into decades as Zack and the Human-Zorg Alliance worked tirelessly to maintain peace and prosperity across the galaxy. Under Zack's leadership, the alliance grew stronger with each passing day, attracting new members from far and wide who were inspired by their message of unity and cooperation. Zack himself became a legend, known throughout the galaxy as the human who had dared to befriend the deadly Zorgs and had forever changed the course of history. His name was spoken with reverence and awe, his deeds celebrated in songs and stories that would endure for generations to come. But even as he basked in the glow of his achievements, Zack never forgot his humble beginnings or the lessons he had learned along the way. He knew that true strength came not from power or dominance, but from the bonds of friendship and understanding that he had forged with the Zorgs and countless other species. And so, as he entered his twilight years, Zack began to look to the future, to the next generation of leaders who would carry on his work and build upon his legacy. He knew that the galaxy would always face new challenges and threats, but he also knew that as long as there were those who believed in the power of unity and compassion, there would always be hope. To ensure that his vision would endure, Zack founded a new institution, the Galactic Academy of Peace and Understanding. Its mission was simple: to bring together the best and brightest minds from across the galaxy, to foster cooperation and dialogue between species, and to promote the values of friendship and mutual respect that had guided Zack throughout his life. As he watched the first class of students arrive at the academy, Zack felt a sense of pride and satisfaction wash over him. He knew that he had made a difference, that he had left the galaxy a better place than he had found it. And he knew that through the academy, his legacy would live on, inspiring new generations to follow in his footsteps and work towards a brighter future for all. In his final days, Zack returned one last time to Zorgan, the planet where his incredible journey had begun so many years ago. As he walked through the lush forests and rugged mountains that had once seemed so alien and forbidding, he felt a sense of peace and belonging wash over him. He knew that he would always be a part of this place, just as it would always be a part of him. And as he sat beneath the twin moons, surrounded by his Zorg friends and the wild beauty of the planet he had come to love, Zack knew that he had found his true home at last. Looking up at the stars, Zack thought back on all the adventures and challenges he had faced, all the friendships he had forged and the lives he had touched. He knew that his journey had been a long and difficult one, but he also knew that it had been worth every step. For he had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes not from the ability to dominate or destroy, but from the courage to open one's heart and mind to others, to see the beauty and value in all forms of life. And with that knowledge, Zack closed his eyes and smiled, knowing that his legacy would endure long after he was gone, a shining beacon of hope and inspiration for all the beings of the galaxy. As the Zorgs and humans alike mourned his passing, they also celebrated his life and the incredible impact he had made. And they knew that as long as there were those who followed in his footsteps, who believed in the power of friendship and understanding, the galaxy would always be a brighter and more hopeful place. For Zack had shown them the way, had proven that even the most unlikely of bonds could change the course of history, and in doing so, he had given them the greatest gift of all: the knowledge that anything was possible, as long as they had the courage and the compassion to make it so.